So the class will only use 2 blocks today. We will use them quite a bit. If you don't have blocks, you can probably do without the blocks, but they are definitely props that we will use throughout. If you don't have blocks, some of the stuff can be used with dumbbells. When we're holding blocks in hands to push them, you can use dumbbells. So we are going to review the pelvis mobility, stability, and shoulder blade mobility, stability. And we're going to start lying on our backs. So have both of your blocks beside your mats on either side. And just start lying on your back with your knees bent. Allow the knees to knock in towards each other. Tuck the chin towards your throat so the back of your neck goes long. And bring your hands to your lower belly so that your fingertips touch the top of your pubic bone, and the heels of your hands touch those bony, sticky out points at the front of your hips or pelvis. And first, just kind of settle in and connect to your breath. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your nose. And as you lie here, connecting to your breath, just start to notice where you feel the weight on the back of your pelvis and on your spine. Notice how close the lower back or your lumbar spine is to the floor, and allow it to just slightly lift away from the floor, which means you might have to tilt your tailbone or your pubic bone towards the floor. And as you do that, see if you can feel the weight shift more to the center of the back of your pelvis, or your sacrum, that triangular bone at the base of your spine. And if you still have your hands on your pubic bone and your hip points, if your pelvis is balanced, you will feel that the heels of your hands and your fingertips rest in a flat plane. So neither the fingertips nor the heels of the hands are higher or lower. And keeping the soles of your feet on the floor, separate your knees so they're above your heels. And keeping the weight light on your feet, meaning don't press into the feet. As you exhale, start to tilt your pubic bone towards your belly button. And you'll feel your low back round towards the spine. And as you inhale, go the opposite way. So belly button towards pubic bone. You'll feel your lower back move away from the floor. And then just repeat that. Each exhalation, tilting pubic bone towards navel. Each inhalation, lifting navel towards pubic bone. And as you repeat this, just notice how much you're pushing into your feet, and see if you can do this without pressing into your feet at all. So allow all of this pelvic tilting, this anterior and posterior, tilting the pelvis forward and backwards, to happen because you're moving the pelvis, not pushing through the feet. Good. Do one more in each direction. And then come back to that balanced position where if the hands were still in that area, they'd be in alignment. So that was anterior, posterior pelvic tilt. Now, bring your awareness to your sit bones. They're those bony points at the bottom where if you were sitting on something, you'd feel weight on both sides of the sit bone. So they're not the tailbone, it's the sit bone. And start to reach one tailbone or sit bone towards the same heel, and then switch. So reach one tailbone, feel the other tailbone lift. Reach the opposite tailbone, feel the other tailbone lift. So now we're going in this side or hip hike. As you start to feel that, bring your hands to the bottom of your rib cage and just see if you can limit the movement by moving the pelvis only. So the ribs don't lift away from the floor or get closer to the floor. They kind of stay still as you shift one sit bone down and up. And then start to notice what you feel happen on the side of the waist of the side of the sit bone that lifts. Imagine each time that you lift, you are squeezing a lemon between the top of your pelvis and the bottom of your rib cage. Good. Let it settle. Be still for a couple of breaths. So that was our movement in the frontal plane or hip hike, side to side. So the last movement we have, take one finger tip to each right to each hip point. Push one hip point down towards the floor as you let the other one lift off the floor, and then shift. So push one down as the other one lifts into your fingertip. Again, try to minimize how much you do this by pushing through your feet. I notice that I tend to help with my foot on my left side. And my right side, I can lift just from the muscles in my that surround my pelvis. So you might start to notice those things. Good. Let it settle back and come back to center and just start to notice what you feel going on. So that was our transverse plane, our rotation. We're going to start to move these away from the floor. So the first one, we're going to lift into a hip bridge, but from that pelvic tilt first. So lift the pubic bone towards the navel and then lift the hips off the floor. Push the belly back down and then finally tilt. So see if you can use the pelvis rotating into that anterior tilt at the bottom and posterior to lift. Good. And you'll feel that the spine does move with the pelvis. Let it. And the next time you lift, stay lifted. Now start to reach your right knee out over your right toe as you hike your left hip up and then switch. So keep the hips lifted as you push one knee out over the toe and hike the opposite hip. You'll feel that there is some rotation with this as well, but can you find that hip hike on the opposite side of the knee that's pushing forward? Good. Roll it back down. Now we're going to add rotation. So start by pushing into your right foot. Drive the right knee over the right toe. You'll feel the right hip lift and rotate, and then let that hip lift. At the top, rotate the opposite way and lower the pelvis back down. Then lift the left hip. Knee pushes over, rotate at the top, lower back down. Push through your right foot, knee pushes over toe, right hip lifts. At the top, shift as you lower back down. Left foot pushes, knee pushes over the toe, left hip lifts, rotate at the top, shift back down. One more each side. Good. And then draw the knees in towards the hips. Let the low back relax towards the floor. Rock a little side to side. Grab both of your blocks. With the flat part of the block, and you might want to look, resting on your hand. So the widest, flattest part of the block is what you're going to hold the block on your palm. So you're not gripping the edges of the block. The palm is flat like a blade. and hold both blocks on both hands right above your shoulders. And keeping the pelvis in neutral, which means the low back is slightly off the floor. First, lift one and then the opposite foot so that the knees are over your hips, slightly wider than hips. And then start to push the blocks towards the sky. And then let the shoulder blades drop towards the floor and touch the floor. So push the block straight up from the sky. The shoulder blades will rest away from the floor, and then they'll come back down. So 2 more times with the arms straight. Just push the blocks as close to the ceiling as you can, and then bring the shoulder blades as close to the floor as you can. Push the blocks as close to the ceiling as you can, and then drop the shoulder blades to the floor. Keep the shoulder blades on the floor and bend the elbows so they come to rest right atop of your hips or right in line with your hips. As you push the arms straight, push the blocks towards the sky. So bend the elbows, touch the backs of the arms towards the floor, and then push the blocks straight up towards the wall, towards the sky. Try that a couple of more times. As you do this, bring your awareness to your spine. Can you keep your spine still as you move the shoulder blades around the rib cage to move them as close to the ceiling as possible and then away? Lift the arms straight up, push the blocks as close to the sky as you can. Bring your knees right over your hips. Keep the blocks where they are and shift the pelvis as far to the right as you can without the blocks moving. Come back through center and shift the pelvis, not the legs, but the pelvis as far to the left. So now you're holding the blocks still. You're pushing them straight up towards the sky as you're rotating your pelvis side to side. So in other words, the rib cage has to stay still as you shift just the lower body side to side. And so we're using obliques to kind of catch and hover, and you only want to go as far as you can. Keep everything in the upper body still. The next time you drop the legs to the right, pause. Bend the left elbow and then straighten the left leg. Bend the left leg, straighten both arms. Drop the legs to the left, bend the right elbow, rest the back of the arm on the floor, and straighten the right leg. Okay. Bend, come back to center with both arms and legs. Shift knees to the right, bend left elbow, straighten right leg. You want to try to continue to do this, keeping as much steadiness and stability in the entire body. So minimize how much rocking or how much micro movements you do. Good. Last time, legs to the left, right elbow bends, right leg straightens. Good. Bring both arms straight back up above. We're going to bend the right elbow. We're going to push the left hand up to the floor as we rock as far onto our right side as possible, and then straighten the right leg. Bend, or left leg, sorry, bend the left leg, come back to center. Bend the left elbow, push the right arm straight up to the sky. If you look, it stays basically where it is, and then straighten the right leg. Bend, come back to center. Straighten the left arm up towards the sky, rock to the right. Push the block as far towards the sky as you can and straighten the left leg. Bend the left leg, rock back to center, Straighten the right arm, bend the left arm, rock as far to the right or left as you can hold. Right leg, right arm pushes straight up, and then right leg straightens. Bend and come back onto your back. Take the blocks by your side and then scoot them towards the front of your mat. Bring both knees over your hips and take the right arm down to the floor about 45 degrees away from your hip. So if the side your hip is 0 and right out in line with your shoulder is 90, halfway between those 2 points is 45. So take your right arm down 45 degrees from your shoulder and take your left arm straight up towards the sky. We're going to roll like we've been practicing, keeping everything together. We're going to roll up onto our right elbow. The left leg is going to come behind. The right knee is going to come out in front. So start to reach your left arm over and prop up onto your right elbow. Take your right hand out about 45 degrees. Start to pull your elbow towards, like you're going to drag it towards the top of your right thigh. Take your left hand up towards the sky and start to reach your left hand underneath your right rib cage. Look down at your right elbow crease. Roll up and look up. Roll and reach. So roll the rib cage, reaching as far under your rib cage with your left hand as possible. Take your left hand now in front of your right shoulder, and as you roll open, don't let your shoulder push forward, right? So use your hand to hold it back. Reach under, and as you roll open, use the hand to stop the shoulder from popping forward. So do that a few times. Just continue to roll that micro movement until you feel that your shoulder and your elbow are in line instead of sinking into it like this. So look at me for a moment, because this is the key to everything that we're doing today. What we want to avoid is this. We don't want our shoulder popping forward, and we don't want it coming up towards our ear. Watch how I bring it back so it's stacked in line with your elbow. So as you continue to roll, each time you roll up, gaze down and just watch. Can you make sure that that shoulder never pops forward? So can you keep it stable? Good. If your elbow is off of the mat, just back onto the mat. Stack your left knee on top of your right knee. Check your shoulder, pop it out, and then bring it back in, elbow down. Take awareness to the right side of your rib cage, so the rib cage closest to the floor. Let it sink towards the floor, and then lift it as far away from the floor as possible. Let it sink, lift away. So now we have that lemon squeeze on the right side of our rib cage. All the while, we're making sure that shoulder never pops forward. And the next time you lift it away, stay lifted, and then lift your hip away from the floor. Keep the rib cage lifted, lower the hip, lower the rib cage. Rib cage, hip, hip, rib cage. So can you move the rib cage separate, and then the hip, and then the hip, then the rib cage? Lift, then lift hip, then straighten the right leg, left leg. Get really long on the left side of your waist as you crunch the right side of your waist. Check the shoulder. Maybe you lift and lower your left leg. So this is a variation of side plank. Good. Stack the knees, but drop the hip, roll back onto your back. Give yourself a hug, wrapping your right arm to grab your left shoulder and then crossing your left arm atop of it or underneath of it, and just hug. And then bring both of your legs back over your hips. Arms out. Left arm now is 45 degrees away from your hip. You're going to start to reach your right arm across your body, and you're going to roll up. So you're going to reach, start to rock, and then you're going to roll up onto your left elbow. And seeing this from the back might help as well. So remember that left shoulder. Take the left hand out 45 degrees. Start to watch the left shoulder. Start to twist. Look down at your left arm. And as you rotate open, only rotate as far open as that shoulder stays stacked. It doesn't protrude. It doesn't poke forward, which would destabilize your shoulder and let the shoulder roll up towards your ear. Try to stay stable. So kind of look down at it. Just notice what your tendency is. You might try pulling the elbow a little closer to the top of your thigh to help it become even more stable, to engage the lats. Next time you lift up, stay up. Take your right hand over to the left side of your rib cage and just lower and lift the rib cage away from the floor. So think of squeezing that lemon between the top of your pelvis and the bottom of your rib cage, all the while being aware of the shoulder joint. And then bring the elbow back onto the floor. Stack your right knee on top of your left. Lift the rib cage away from the floor. Then lift the hips away from the floor. Lower the hips, lower the rib cage. Rib cage lifts away from the floor, hips lift. Hips lower, rib cage lower. Few more times. Seeing if you can move those pieces separately, but also being aware what's going on in your shoulder. The next time you lift your hips away from the floor, straighten that top leg, really crunch your lemon on the bottom side. Keep your right waist long as you lift and lower your right leg. Stack your knees, lower your hip, lower your rib cage. Come on to your belly. Shift your hips side to side. Kind of notice what's going on. Sometimes hip hiking makes the side that we typically hip hike on very aware. You'll be very aware of it. It might be a little sore in that region. You might be really good at engaging that area. So start with your forehead on the floor. Bring your arms in line. So turn your head to the right and bring your arm beside your eye, or your elbow crease in line with your eyes. And then do the same on the left. The thumbs are in line with your ears on the floor. You're going to lift your forehead off the floor and then bring the hairline to the floor. You should be looking right down between your chest. Start to lift the chest, your breast off the floor, and then lift the head off the floor. Continue to look down. Lower the forehead. And then again, look down at your chest. So right between your breasts, lift your breast off the floor, press through your hands, lift your head, and then move your elbows in so they're in line with your wrist. Lift the elbows off the floor, take them wide, and lower back down. Lift the chest away from the floor, so your breast off the floor, then lift the head, press the hands down, lift the elbows off, tap them down on the floor in line with your wrist, then lift them up, take them wide, and lower back down. I'm going to turn so you can see what I'm doing from this angle, in case that's confusing. I can't straighten my legs behind me. So you'll lift just the chest, then you'll lift the elbows, roll them in, tap them down, lift them up, take them wide. Chest, head, elbows in, elbows out, lower down. One more time. First, chest as far away from the floor as possible, then head, tap elbows in. Then you're going to walk your elbows in so they're underneath your shoulders. Lift the chest further away from the floor. Peel the belly off the floor. Keep your knees down. Lift your thighs off the floor. Tuck your toes under. Lift your knees off the floor. Keep lifting the chest as far away from the floor as you can. Bend just the knees to the floor. Shift forward. Peel the thighs down. Pubic bone down. And then stretch your chest forward as you take your shoulder blades down. Come up onto your hands and press back into child's pose. And so making that connection of how the shoulder blades lift and stay connected, or the rib cage lifts and stays connected to your shoulder blades to help create that stability in the shoulder girdle so we can load the shoulders. Roll back onto your back. So last time we rolled up to our elbow. This time we're going to pause on the elbow, but then roll up onto your hands. So starting again, spine in neutral, low back slightly away from the floor, pelvis in that neutral position. So neither rocked forward nor back. Bend one knee at a time, lifting the knees above the hips, shins parallel to the floor. Right arm 45 degrees away from your body on the ground, left arm reaching up towards the sky. We're going to start to reach the left arm over to the right to help to roll up onto your elbow and then onto your hand. We're going to shift to where the hand is in line with the center of your thigh. You're going to straighten your right leg and bend your left knee so that the foot's on the ground. So left foot is on the ground, left knee is pointing up towards the sky. Push the hand down into the floor and away. Check your shoulder. It's not pushed forward. It's stacked so that the wrist, elbow, shoulder make a straight line. Lift the rib cage away from the floor. Turn the outer edge of your right foot down. Left arm reaches up, then come up. So really squeeze the right side of your rib cage. Kick your right foot underneath so that now your right knee is underneath your right hip, and then come up. So you should be in a position facing the long edge of your mat with your left heel in line with your right knee. So bring your hands to your hips. And we're going to go into a pelvic tilt side to side. So you're going to lift, crunch the lemon on the left side, and then you're going to push that left side down. So hike up and down. Just see, can you move your pelvis like a seesaw side to side? And notice how easier it is or hard it is. And as we get to the other side, just notice that. Then find neutral. Tuck your right toes under. If you need a blanket under your knee, by all means, grab a blanket. Take your left hand to your knee. You're going to push the knee right out over your toe. Then you're going to come up. Hands can come to the floor. Reach your right sit bone towards your right heel. So now we have that anterior tilt. Come upright. Pelvis stays neutral. Left knee over your left toe. Pelvis tilts forward as you bring your sit bone towards your right heel. Come up. One more time. Pelvis stays neutral as you turn the knee out over the toe. Then start to tuck the pelvis forward. Sit bone reaches towards your heel. Come upright or reach the hips back. Okay. So now we're going to turn towards the left knee that's out in front of us. So how you do that is that right foot is going to swing behind you. So face your left foot. We're going to take one of the blocks and bring it to the floor. It can either be on the highest level or that second level. Bring your hands. I'm going to turn to face you so you can see what I'm doing. You don't have to. First, rock the pelvis up and down. So go side to side. And remember, we're squeezing the lemon on the left side to try to shorten that space. Hip hiking is not bad, but we want to feel that we can do both. We want to hike it, and then we want to keep it in neutral and take the knees forward. Good. Come up, hike it, keep it hiked, and go forward. Make that waistline long and go forward. Hike it and go forward. Take it back, waistline long, so pelvis in neutral. Go forward. Grab your block. We're going to take the block out in front of us, hike it. Bring it back, bring it in neutral. Take it over your head. Good. Bring it out in front of your chest, hike your hip, push it straight out in front of you. So reach it, bring it out, or bring it in, pelvis in neutral, over your head, forward. Good. Take the block down inside of your left foot. Push into the block and think of that shoulder or the rib cage lifting up to support the front of the shoulder, and then reach your left arm underneath your right. Keep stacking, rotate open. Twist and open. So as you're twisting, can you think of the rib cage twisting up and in to support the front of the shoulder? And then can you keep pushing the block away to keep the shoulder strong as you reach the left arm up? Good. Bring both hands to the block and then bring your knees together. Take the other block under your other hand and sit your hips back. Stretch your sit bones towards your heel. Lengthen the right side of your waist. So try to separate between your ribs and your pelvis as much as possible. Shift forward onto hands and blocks. So your hands are on the blocks at the flattest level. So you're in a tabletop. Again, blanket can be under your knees. Toes can be tucked for more stability. Front of the feet flat for less stability. We're first going to start by just moving the pelvis. So think of tucking the tailbone towards the floor and then reaching the tailbone towards the sky. And can you minimize that movement just to your pelvis and your lower back? So you feel the tuck as much as possible, that's flexion in your spine. And you feel the lift as high as possible, and that's extension in your spine. See if you can find somewhere halfway between. So that's neutral. Now we're going to shoulders, just like we had the blocks and we were pushing them up to the sky and then taking the shoulder blades towards the floor. You're going to keep the spine still and just move the chest closer to the floor and away from the floor without the spine rounding or extending. So can you move the entire trunk as one? Or you can think of shoulder blades squeezing towards the spine and away. Then push the chest as far away from the floor as you can. Keep it there. Turn your elbow points so they face your thighs and just bend the elbows towards and away from the floor. Bring your awareness into your shoulder blades. Can your shoulder blades stay perfectly still as you bend and straighten your elbows? Good. Take a break. Hug one arm over right hand, right elbow above left elbow. Lift to chest height. Reach the elbows forward. Swing the arms and switch. So left elbow on top of right, lift the elbow shoulder height and reach forward. Good. Block is going to go underneath your right knee. Other block is going to be underneath your left hand. Be on your right fingertips. And you're going to keep your left knee close to your right knee as you slide the knee down to the floor and then up your inner thigh. So each time you lift the left knee, you're pushing your right thigh like it's going to touch the inside of your right knee. So we've got that rotation going in the pelvis now. Lift, tuck your right toes under, straighten both your left leg and your right arm, and then come underneath. So a little bit of balance. Push the left hand hard into the block. So continuing to try to keep the chest as far away from the floor as possible. Straighten the left leg back. Bring the toes to the ground. Switch the block that's underneath your left hand to under your right hand. Rotate open into a side plank. So the block is under the right knee and the right hand, and we're opening the left side of the waist. Stretch the left side of the waist, hug the right side of the waist. So squeeze the limit on the right, and then lift and lower the leg, the top leg, without crunching the left side of your waist. So another variation of side plank. Good. Square towards the floor. Drop the left knee down, take the right knee off the block. Remove the blocks off towards the front side of your mat. Cross your ankles, sit back, and come back onto your back. Hug the knees in and rock a little side to side. Now we're going to the other side. Left arm is 45 degrees away from your hips. Spine is in neutral, so low back is neither pressing onto the floor or arching away from the floor. Hip points in line with your pubic bone, so we did that at the beginning. Left arm, right arm reaches up. You're going to start to reach the right arm across your body. Roll the whole body as one, rock onto your elbow, and then come onto your hand. Steady your shoulder, so move it back so wrist, elbow, and shoulder are all in one line. The right foot is now going to come onto the floor, knee pointing up. Straighten the left leg out in front of you, edge is on the ground. Notice if you shifted your shoulder towards your foot, pop it back in, or chest rocking more towards the floor, right arm up. Press the hand away from the floor and then start to lift the hips. Sweep the right foot underneath of you, or your left foot, so that your left knee is underneath your left hip, and then come up. Right knee is going to bend out over the toe. Shift it back up. Bring your hands to your hips. Find that pelvic tilt. Notice if it feels different on this side. This feels really awkward to me on this side because I have such a hard time hiking. It's my left, but it's your right. And then find neutral, and we're going to push knee over toe. Then hinge in your left hip as you reach your left sit bone straight towards your left heel. Good. Come back up. Push knee out over toe. Hinge, reach the sit bone back so you have that anterior tilt. Yeah. Come back up and push out. Try it a few more times. Just feeling where your pelvis moves with ease and what movements are challenging in your pelvis. Good. Come upright. You're going to swing your left foot behind you so that you turn to face your right knee. Hike the hip side to side here. So it's a slightly different plane. It's a little easier for me to do this. Then take your block between your hands like so. As you take it, hike your right hip and then push the block forward. Bring it back to your chest. Keep the hip in neutral. So don't hike it. Keep the waist long as you go forward and arm goes up. Hike, press it out in front of you. Bring it in. Waistline stays long. Hips in neutral. Bring it over your head. Hike, press it out. Waistline long. Bring it up. One more time. Hike, press it out. Bring it in. Keep it in neutral. Bring it out in front of you. Good. Block inside of your right foot. Keep your hips in neutral. So keep the right waistline long. And reach and twist. Reaching your right arm behind your left. And open. So now we're switching to that awareness to the shoulder. We want to keep pushing the block away and making sure that we keep the wrist, shoulder, and elbow all in one line. So as we rotate open into that twist, we don't move the shoulder forward. We're just rolling the rib cage, not moving the hip or the shoulder. Good. Bring both hands down and bring both knees to the floor. Hands back onto the block. Just a couple of times through that pelvic tilt, more to find neutral. So find neutral in the pelvis, find neutral in the spine. We're going to do a couple of those scapular push-ups. So we're just moving the shoulder blades around the rib cage, or you can think of lifting the rib cage into the shoulder blades, but not moving the spine. If that seems relatively easy, you can back the knees up so you're more in like a knee plank and try it from that plank position. Push the chest as far away from the floor, elbows point towards your hips as you lift and lower. So again, we're looking for the rib cage and the shoulder blade to stay connected. So we're not squeezing the shoulder blades towards the spine as we lower. Good. Now take the block that's underneath your right hand and bring it underneath the other knee, the knee that you didn't do. I have it underneath my left, so I think it's the left side. Block is underneath your right hand, and you're going to slide the right knee up and down your inner left thigh. Careful not to move that hip out to the side. If anything, it moves in a little bit as you lift the right leg. Lift, tuck the left toes under, bring both your right arm and your left leg long, and then bring the knee and elbow together underneath, stretch them long. Keep the spine, pelvis, and shoulders really stable. And then bring your block that's under your right hand underneath your left. Kick your left foot behind you, rotate open. Right foot is on the ground. Push the block away with your left hand and squeeze the limit on the left side. So puff the rib cage up towards the sky on the right. And then just lift and lower the leg. So keep this side of your waist really open as you just lift and lower the leg. Good. Turn towards the floor. Right hand, right knee come to the floor, and then left knee, left hand come to the floor. Move the blocks off towards the front edge of your mat. Sit back into child's. Let the hands reach towards the tops of your feet. So let the tops of the shoulders relax towards the floor as the hands reach back. Shift the pelvis side to side. So we're going to start to move further away from the floor. This next side plank is going to be the side plank that is challenging. So you can do either of the two things that we've done thus far for side plank. You can keep elbow on the floor and lift up onto your knees. Just make sure you don't collapse into the shoulder. So keep it down and in line with your elbow. You can also do what we just did without the block, which is keep the bottom knee on the floor. Just again, shoulder, elbow, wrist, shoulder away from the ear. So we're going to come into a child's pose. Set the hips back towards your heels. Start to crawl your fingers towards the front edge of your mat as you reach your hips towards your feet, or your sit bone towards your feet. So feel the space between the top of your pelvis and the bottom of your rib cage get long. So lengthen your waist. As you inhale, shift, keep your hands where they are, and shift to a tabletop. Sit the hips back towards your heels. So reach the sit bones back, really tilting your hip points towards the tops of your thighs so that anterior tilt. Shift forward into tabletop. Option to stay here and do that scapular push-up, or to lift into a plank and do a scapular push-up. So you're lowering the whole body as one towards the floor and then away from the floor. Elbows stay straight, push the floor away. We're gonna shift onto the right hand. Crunch the right side of your rib cage. Lift the left arm up and over. You have the option to stay here. Left side of your waist stays long. Maybe you start to lift and lower the left leg. Keep crunching on the right side of your waist. Bring both hands down and step your left foot to the front of your mat. Take the block, one block, inside of your left foot. Feet are about hip distance apart. Start to shift, rotate your pelvis. So think of rotating your pubic bone towards your inner left thigh and then lifting it as far away from it. And I'll show you from the back side the rotation. So this hip opens and then it rotates towards. It opens and it rotates towards. So we have that pelvic rotation. Find a neutral position. Drop your right heel down and in. Lift the block. Turn to face you now. Lift the block and place it between both of your palms. Chest is still squared towards the floor. Then lift up. So square your pelvis and then hike side to side. So right knee stays bent as you hike side to side, left knee. Find neutral. Bring the block over your head, bend the knee deeper. Straighten, reach the block out in front of you. Over your head, bend the knee. Straighten, reach it out in front of you. Bend. Reach it straight out in front of you. I'm going to shift directions. You're going to rotate towards the long edge of your mat. So you're now in a warrior two. Take the block in your right hand. So your left knee still bent. Right hand. Bend the elbow close to your waist and hike the hip side to side. So this is where I start to notice that part of my problem in my right hip is my right groin, because I can't do this on this side. Find neutral. As you straighten your right leg, left leg, straighten your right arm. Block is on the top of your palm. Left hand slides down your left thigh, right arm reaches up towards the sky, look up, push the block towards the sky. Good. Stand up, push the block, take it out to the side. Bend the left knee, bend the elbow towards the waist. Straighten the left leg, straighten the right arm, lift it up. Turn the palm so the fingers face towards your left toes. Look up, push it up, take it out to the side. One more time, bend the left knee, bend the right elbow. Straighten both. Lift the right arm beside the ear, turn the fingers towards the toes, come into that triangle pose. Bend the elbow, grab the block, and place the block on the floor inside of your right foot, left foot. Turn your left pelvis towards the floor. Keep your left hand on the block, right hand beside. So we're continuing to aim the right hip point towards the floor. Now just move the rib cage. Twist. We're pushing the left hand into the block to keep the left shoulder stable. So the pelvis is now staying still as we rotate the ribs. Open and closed. Close, so right hand to the block. Reach the right arm forward beside your ear. Bend the left knee. Then rotate the hip and the pelvis open. Cactus your arm. Bring the block to the outside of your left foot. Step your right foot forward a little bit. Then the block a little further forward. Keep the right side of your waist long as you lift and lower the right leg. So you're lifting from the hip, not the waist. Step the foot back, come up. Bend the left knee, bring your right foot forward. Stand upright. So left shoulder over left hip. Straighten the left leg. Now lift the right leg by crunching the right side of your waist. So almost this shoulder goes towards the hip, not away from it. So towards. Good. Step your feet wide. Turn your toes towards the long edge of your mat and fold forward. Bend one knee and then the other. Oh, geez. We have 10 minutes left. We have 1 minute left and about 10 minutes to finish the other side. So I hope you all are okay if we become even. One by one, lower your knees down to the ground. Move your hips back. Press up into a downward facing dog. Aim one knee towards the other side as you shift the hips away from that knee. So let your pelvis rotate. Good. Shift forward to plank. Do a couple of scapular push-ups, either on knees or toes. And then we're going to take the weight on the left side, rotate open into whatever variation of a side plank that you want, but crunch the left side. So crunch the limit on the left side. Keep the right side open. Maybe you try to lift and lower that leg. You can either just sweep that leg forward or square and bring it forward. So right leg comes forward. Take the block inside of your right leg. And we're going to tilt the pelvis. So drop your pubic bone towards the right thigh, peel it away. So we're in that transverse plane. We're rotating. Then find neutral. Drop your heel down. Take the block between your palms. Reach it between your feet or reach it inside of your right foot. And then come upright. We're going to hike both sides. So much easier for me on this side. And then keep the pelvis in neutral. Reach the arms forward as you bend. As you straighten, reach it up. Bend, reach it forward. As you straighten, lift it up. So think of shoulder blades staying connected to your rib cage. So as we bend the front knee, we're trying to pass the block way out in front of us. Good. Now we're going to come into warrior two. Take the block into your left hand, right knee's bent. As you straighten the right leg, straighten the left arm. Reach bicep to ear, turn fingers towards right toes. Do that little side tilt. Come back up. Take it out. As you bend the knee, bend the elbow. Pass it. Lift it. Tilt. Now we've got that side to side tilt of the pelvis, but we're keeping the waistline long. One more. Tilt. Switch hands. Square your pelvis towards your right foot. Bend your knee to bring the block inside of your right foot. Keep the left hip points moving towards the floor. Right hand pushing the block away, and then twist just your rib cage. Reach, touch the block with your left hand. Pelvis rotates. Think of that shoulder joint staying really stable. I'm almost twisting or screwing the block into the floor with my right hand to help me stabilize the shoulder that's on the block. Rotate open, then rotate closed. Reach the left arm beside the ear, then rotate open, cactus the arm. Bend your right knee. You can take your left hand to the hip if you want. Step your left foot forward. So we're going to stay long in the left side of our waist. And we're going to lift by using the hip muscles rather than the waist muscles. Lift and lower. And come back up. Keep the right toes facing out. Come upright. Straighten the right leg. Now we're going to lift the left leg by hiking the hip. And think of taking left shoulder towards your left foot as you do it. I can't do it on this side. Step the feet wide. Turn the toes to face the long edge of your mat. Fold forward. Move the hips side to side, keeping the legs straight. So can you just rotate the pelvis? Shift your pubic bone to face one thigh and then the other. Notice what happens in your waist. Does it feel the same side to side? One by one, bring the knees to the floor. Touch the toes. Reach the hips back towards your heels. If child's pose is not comfortable for you, you can rest on your back and draw your knees in towards your chest for Balasana. And take a few breaths. You may try shifting your pelvis here, rotating it side to side. Letting go of any tension you feel in your low back, in your hips, and your shoulders. And staying either in this position if it's comfortable for you, or rolling onto your back. hugging your knees in or just resting on your back for 5 more breaths. And as you're ready, go ahead and make your way up into a seated position. You want to give yourself a hug, whatever you need to do to release anything that you feel in your shoulders. Shake them out. And this concludes the scapular or shoulder blade and pelvic mobility and stability